Hi, and welcome to YeeFit Adventures. My name's Darren, and this channel is about backpacking, gear reviews, and finding your next adventure. In this video, I'm going to be talking about altitude mountain sickness, otherwise known as AMS. So stay tuned. On a recent backpacking trip, some friends and I went up into high altitude, and one of us got sick, or a couple of us kind of felt some altitude sickness. It usually starts with about 7,000 feet. You might get a slight headache at first, but then it can develop and become more serious. Now, altitude mountain sickness is caused when you ascend too rapidly, which doesn't allow the body enough time to acclimate to the altitude, adjust to the oxygen level, and the changing air pressure. Some of the symptoms that can be caused is headaches, vomiting, insomnia, reduced physical performance, and coordination. So on that day, we started at sea level and we drove all the way up to about 7,000 feet at the trailhead. And that was at the Sequoia National Park. So my friend who got the altitude sickness, he had packed the night before, didn't go to sleep till 2 a.m., only got maybe about 2 hours of sleep before we were about to take off, and he was recovering from a cough that he had developed a couple weeks prior. When we got to the trailhead, we knew his pack was a lot heavier than most of ours. It was over 30 pounds. It was kind of a last minute decision to join us on this backpacking trip. So he wasn't quite physically prepared, physically and mentally prepared at this point. So the plan that day was to hike about 4.1 miles up to Heather Lake at 9,000 feet of elevation. So it was about 2,000 feet of elevation gain for that particular section of hike. The first 2 miles went okay. We all started off slow and was struggling to acclimate to the altitude. And we could all feel a sense of altitude sickness, like you want to make sure you're drinking enough, you take regular breaks, but we could tell by the look on his face, his physical movement, and he complained of a headache, that something was going off or wrong, and he might have altitude sickness. At that point, when we kind of talked to him, he had to take frequent breaks. At one point, he actually had to lie down for 15 minutes to kind of rest. We boiled some tea for him, and we really wanted to make sure that he was okay before we continued on the trail. A friend of mine, Chris, we went up ahead. It was only maybe about a half a mile to the lake, but it was another 500 feet of elevation gain. And we felt that it was better to backtrack and stay the night at a lower elevation, and everyone would get a chance to acclimate better before we ascended to a higher elevation. On our way back down, there was a fork in the road. We stopped for dinner. We cooked our food. At that point, Steve was lethargic and he really couldn't put any food down. And at that point, he did vomit several times. I think it was like 5 before we continued in another direction up to Panther Gap, where we stayed the night at 8,600 feet. He was all, after that night, we all got some really good rest, And in the morning, I did have the Diamox tablets. He took one of those. He was feeling better, and we continued up to Alta Peak at 11,000 feet. And he was really grateful that we could all stick together and finish that peak summit at Alta Peak that day at 11,000 feet. And he really learned about his body, what his body could handle at that time, and for next time he would be better prepared. So I think it was a really good learning experience for all of us. I know now my limits. I was even feeling a slight headache at the end of the first day, and so my body needed to acclimate, and it was a pretty tough experience that first day. Right around 7,000, 8,000 feet, you'll start to feel possibly some elevation sickness, and those symptoms will be body aches, tiredness, headaches. Those are some of the things. Nausea. Some ways to prevent it is just to acclimate over time. Take multiple breaks. Drink lots of water. Make sure you eat snacks to keep your energy levels up. And then, in the case that you do feel elevation sickness, I got some medication called Diamox, but it's supposed to help if you start to feel those body aches or nausea or headaches. Some of the side effects that can occur are tingly hands, racing heartbeat, and you'll probably have to pee a lot. Recommended like 2 tablets a day, morning and night, as needed, for a max of 2 per day. So I took one at the trailhead, so did my friend, so we'll see how we do. So I just wanted to thank you for watching this video. I hope you were able to get something out of it, maybe learn. If you want to share your altitude or elevation sickness stories down in the comments, that'd be greatly appreciated. It would help a lot of us in the backpacking community to kind of learn more about altitude mountain sickness, some of the symptoms, what can you do to better prepare for it. So till next time, take care, and let's find your next adventure.